I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Are you ready to win at the game of life? Well, throw out that rulebook and get down to the business of being the best and most authentic version of you. Welcome to the Human Design Podcast. We're changing the rules around success, abundance, purpose, love, and life, where we're creating a planet where everyone can thrive in a world that loves and supports each other. I'm your host, Emma Dunwoody, a qualified master coach, human design expert, podcaster, and entrepreneur that is living the life of my dreams, breaking all the rules while doing it, making a huge impact, and living my design and manifesting miracles on the daily. Join me as I break down and simplify everything you need to live in alignment with your human design, teach you how to recondition your unconscious mind for greatness, and to take back your power so you can manifest your heaven on earth and serve the rest of the planet at the same time. It's time to give up the fear and step into your highest potential, to reach for the stars, to know and live your greatness. It's what you deserve, and it's what the planet really needs from you. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Let's talk about the FLFE, or Focused Life Force Energy. I've been in love with this service since 2019, and I attribute a lot of my improved performance in all areas of my life since then to this incredible service. Right after I first put the FLFE on my home, my business took off, and to be honest, my kids actually started getting along better than they had in a really long time. But back to the business. I actually launched my first mastermind the first week of lockdown, with great success when many were struggling. Last year, when I was walking the Camino, I noticed that my body was a lot stronger and fitter, and I'd gone without the joint pain that I'd actually experienced 4 years earlier when I walked it for the first time. And I honestly believe it's being in the FLFE for the last 4 years that's helped my body over that time rest and recover and build muscle and strength. And as I've navigated a number of significant challenges over the last 4 years, like losing both my parents, the end of a 24-year marriage, and building a 7-figure business, I often hear from friends how amazed they are by how quickly I move through challenge, how quickly I get to a place of love, releasing the pain, the trauma, and the conditioning much faster than many, and I know that I get to letting go and love much faster than I used to. The FLFE raises the consciousness of a building or a place or device that it's connected to, meaning that everything and everyone in the vicinity of this higher consciousness field accesses more love, healing, success, and joy than when you were swimming around in the standard collective consciousness. This gives you access to greater inspiration, ideas, thinking, healing, dimensions, grace, and all sorts of good things. To top this all off, the FLFE mitigates EMF. It actually transforms the harmful non-native EMF frequency into good, healing, and protective frequency of shungite. My dog Alice cannot get enough of my phone ever since I switched it on, often sleeping with her head directly on it. Jeffrey and Clayton, the founders and creators of this service, are on a mission to raise consciousness and to get their incredible service to as many people as possible. And so it is very affordable, and you can try it for free for 2 weeks with no obligation. And if you like it, then you can sign up. Check out the links in the show notes and turn your home and office into a temple. Hey, and welcome to today's episode. Well, on today's episode, I'm going to focus on 2025. In fact, I'm going to help you focus on 2025, my friend, because I want it to be the best year ever for me and for you. So go and grab a piece of paper and a pen, get your journal out, whatever you need, go and get it. Maybe get yourself a glass of water, a cup of tea, and let's sit down for a little while together while you can listen to this episode, pause it as we go, and start to create the best year ever so far for you in 2025. Rightio. Now, If you have been listening to this series, we have reviewed 2024. We have had the lovely Dinah Maria talk about what's going to go on astrologically next year. And now I want to start to get you thinking about 2025. There's a couple of caveats that I want to kind of put here at the beginning. Number one, in my personal experience and in my opinion, this isn't actually the perfect time to be doing your planning for next year. However, I've done this little series every year for a number of years, so I wanted to make sure that I put the planning episode with the review, the forecast, and then this one so that it's easy to find. However, what I would highly recommend is that you go through today's exercise, you come along for the journey, you do the work in your journal, because done is better than perfect. Now, if you're like me and you really want to raise that consciousness of yours, access the greatness that lives within you, and actually manifest that potential into reality, then what I highly recommend is that you get into January and review this episode and go over it again. Because when the Human Design New Year begins in January, this is a really, really good time for us to be doing our planning. So that's what I'll be doing. We do all of our planning at the back end of the year. So we've been doing all of that now. And then we will review everything in January. Now, the other thing I want to say on this topic is that 50% of you are an emotional authority. If you are an emotional authority, and I believe I say this every year, please make sure that you don't just do this once and forget about it. Emotional authorities need to make sure that they actually ride the emotional wave while they are doing anything. So in this case, you're planning. And let me give you an example of how I do this. So as you've all heard me say, every year I use this awesome calendar, what I call diary, called a passion planner. And I start my planning for the following year in my passion planner in the beginning of December, just journaling on the lessons that I've learnt from, let's say, this year. And this is talking about next year's planner. Then there's actually exercises in there that get me thinking about planning everywhere from 3 months to 5 years to 10 years. And I just start to do that all through January and in December. And then in January, I kind of put things down, and I'm going to give you some really cool ideas of some of the things that I do as well. So by January, I kind of solidify it, because what I discovered over the years, and especially before I came to Human Design, I would be really frustrated that I would do planning, or I would set a goal, or I'd do these things. And then I would come back to it and feel like, God, that just doesn't feel right for me. And obviously it wasn't right for me. I just didn't understand that I was an emotional being, meaning that I need to ride the emotional wave to get clarity. So giving myself time to just kind of meander through my planning instead of this old version of me that was very conditioned to get it right straight away and get it with clarity and detail. Really understanding how my energy works, and that's half of you out there, is more about the meander, is more about slowing down, reviewing it at all sort of times, different areas in my emotional wave. And that's how I've really managed to simplify the process for me. So I trust that is helpful for my emotional beings. Now, if you are a non-emotional being and you are going through this episode and you just feel like, yep, this is my thing, this is my spleen talking to me, this is my sacral talking to me, maybe you have an authority that has, it's a sounding board authority, you're talking it out with your friends, maybe you're sending messages back and forward. The moment you have that knowing, that's fine. You can just lock it and load it, people. Lock it and load it, move on. Don't overthink it. It's really, remember, we want to come from our feeling place, because we create our reality from how we feel. So we want to be conscious that when we're planning anything or we're moving toward manifesting something, we are going to manifest from our frequency. Our frequency is how we feel. Okay, so our real goal, we might have a material goal. We might have a revenue goal. We might have you might have like a material goal, like you want to buy a house or whatever that is. But what you want to hone into is the feeling you get. Okay, the feeling you get when that thing is made manifest. The being that you're being, the person that you're being, that feeling is what's going to call it into your reality. So that's what we want to get clear on. Okay. So for my HDX crew out there listening, you know it. There is a 90-minute class on this coming up for you, the extended version. We're going to go super deep. I'm going to give you all sorts of super exciting, fun activities to do on the class, and I'll be there to help you clarify 2025 for you. Now, for my other friends, that's cool. If you're not in HDX, come and join us. If you're feeling like it's time, come do it, because it will absolutely transform your life. It's all about making human design simple and actually transforming your life with it, as opposed to just learning the knowledge and getting it stuck in your head. So let us start today's podcast. Get your piece of paper out, get your pen out, and I just want you to begin by answering the question: if you had a magic wand and you could create anything you want to create and everyone in your life would be happy, what would you create? So you can pause this right now. I would encourage you just to take a moment, and you're looking for the feeling. So you might say you want to create a successful business. You might say you want to create a loving relationship. So it's beautiful to write these things down, but notice how it feels when you say, oh, I know, I think I want this and I think I want that. Feel it. It's in your head. We want to get it into the body. So once you have a vision, an idea of what you want, write it down, and then just get into the feeling of having it. So press pause. Beautiful. All right. So I'm assuming you pressed pause. I'm assuming you now have maybe a long list of things that you would love to create in 2025. And you have an idea, you have a feeling, I should say, in the body of what that feels like. All right. This is this is a muscle that you have to build. Oftentimes when we're asked a big open-ended question like this, especially for my sacral beings, it can feel challenging because you're kind of like, I don't know what I want. And that's okay. All right. That's okay. So if you're a sacral being, you can chunk it down. You can get to a place, do I want to focus on the business? Do I want to focus on my relationships? Do I want to focus on my health and fitness? So you can chunk it down and get that sacral involved. But the idea is to start getting it out, to start building the muscle, to understand that if this is your first year of planning, and I know many of you, it will not be because you've been here with me for many years doing this, is it's all about building a muscle to dream bigger and bigger and more expansive. And we start when we first start our manifesting journey. Most of us are just like human doings. Like once we get the idea that we actually have to take imperfect action, we go crazy. We're out there taking way too much action, probably like leading ourselves down the road to burnout. But then we get to this place where we understand, okay, less is more. We can actually start to allow the feeling, our frequency, our authority, our strategy to guide us to an easier path to manifestation, which is what this is all about. Okay. So the next question, and it kind of seems the same, but it's actually chunking it down a little bit for you and a little bit for your mind. Again, once I'm finished, maybe pause it. You could do the the heart coherence meditation. And really the question I want you to ask yourself is, what would make 2025 the best year ever? What would make 2025 the best year ever? I know for me, I really want like this harmony across all areas of my life, because the last few years I've been really like stellar, like expansive, in alignment, authentic, healed in most of my life, and then there's been this part of my life that has just not been that at all. It's been the opposite, and the back end of this year has been very much about healing that, healing trauma, really growing into the next iteration of me, growing into the person I need to be to receive the manifestation that I've put out there in this area of my life. So again, what would make 2025 the best year so far? Get that down on a piece of paper because it's super important. Now, the next question is, all right, I've got like my big, expansive, maybe it's a 5-year idea, maybe it's beyond that. If I had a magic wand, what would I create? It's big, it's expansive. Then we've chunked it down a little bit. Okay, what would make 2025 the best year so far on that journey to the big dream? Now we need to understand, to actually make manifest these dreams, these visions, these knowings, these desires, whatever you want to call it, who would you actually need to be? Like, what is the identity of the person that actually has this life or has called these things into their life? Because so often we say we want something. And for me personally, I'm definitely in this place that I'm thinking about, I want to call in the love of my life, right? And what I need to understand is, well, who do I need to be to call this person in? Because I've done a long list of who that person, who I want them to be. I'm really aware of how I want to show up for that person. I have practiced the frequency of being in a relationship like that. Like, I know, as a manifesting generator, that I want a relationship, or that the relationship will be correct for me when it feels peaceful, when it feels satisfying. So if you're a manifester, you're looking for peace in a relationship. If you're a generator, you're looking for satisfaction. If you're a projector, you're looking for the feeling of success. And if you are a reflector, you're feeling surprise. I love to say surprise and delight. So we have these very clear indicators, depending on our type, how these things are going to feel. And oftentimes, especially if you follow, there's so many people talking about this now, but if you follow Dr. Nicole LaPera, who is on the podcast this year, she talks so much about trauma bonding and really understanding that so often this person that we think it is like fireworks and, oh my God, I can't be away from this person, often is trauma bonding. And from a human design perspective, it's also often electromagnetics coming together, which means two opposites are coming together. Sometimes that can be beautiful, but other times there are a number of electromagnetics that come together that can be very, very challenging in relationships over time. I actually remember a very experienced human design person telling me once that, and for those of you that have listened for a long time, you would have heard this story, and I think I would have even said who told me this. But someone said to me once, any relationship that has the channel of struggle in it, it's going to be hard. If that person doesn't raise their consciousness, if they don't clear up the shadow stuff, that can be a really challenging energy in a relationship. And I had it in my last relationship. So I was like, no, that's ridiculous. And I had kind of worked out all of these mantras, and I'd, learned how to unplug from it. But the truth was, if that channel doesn't raise its consciousness, then it affects the entire relationship. So that's what I've kind of gone off on a tangent, but what's really important to understand is our human design gives us this beautiful, very clear indicators of what's correct for us. So I'm just using a relationship as an example, but if you're thinking about a business, like, one of the things that you want to be feeling and experiencing, a part of your identity, the thing that you're looking for, a value perhaps, is going to be your signature of your type, because it's really how we know we're in alignment. So this whole exercise, what I would encourage you to do is to get super clear on who you're being. What is your identity? of the person that actually manifests this year 2025 that you've just written down. Who are they? Are they committed to whatever they're doing? Are they willing to stay in integrity, meaning that are they keeping the promises that they make to others and themselves, really themselves? That's a big deal. Are they perhaps slowing down? I think this is one of the big things for me. Like I'm an emotional authority and I have the 3420. So I have the fastest energy in the design, but I'm an emotional authority. So it's like that balance, learning to slow down. Like, what is the identity? And you can go deep into your design with this. So I know for me, a large part of my identity and this identity that I'm stepping into has got so much to do with my profile. Because I know as a line 3, when I feel like I'm having fun and adventure, everything in my life expands for the better. And then my line 5 wants to just give everything I learn and experience to the world. So my identity and this identity I'm stepping into, I'm very conscious of using language that empowers me to be in alignment with my profile. So I encourage you to play with those things as well. All right. One of my favorite questions is next. And again, you can pause once I've finished ranting. I just realized I do kind of go on a little bit, but you have free will to hit the pause button whenever you choose. Okay, this is one of my favorite questions ever. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do in 2025 if you knew you couldn't fail? I love this question so much, and I'm kind of reflecting on it for me. And it's this knowing that I am supported by the universe. What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? I would do less. What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? I would just 100% with purity follow what I have energy for as a manifesting generator. I was saying to someone today, being a line 3, I do make a lot of mistakes. And I learned so much. I'm winning or learning. And I think one of the greatest experiments in being a line 3 is I've experimented just as much on what it's like not to listen to your authority, not to listen to your strategy, as I have learning to listen to them and seeing the results. And I think if I knew I couldn't fail, the number one thing I would do would be just to slow down and follow what I have energy for. And just trust, just know that my heart, my soul, and the universe are taking me exactly where I want to go, and that place is beyond my wildest dreams. So what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail, my friend? Press pause, take some time. Okay, so I want to keep this short and sweet, and there are a couple of other things that I'm going to give to you. These are the things that we do in HDX as well, in a lot more detail and with a lot more fun. But I want to give them to you in this short and sweet planning episode. And that is, number 1, I want you to look over everything that you've written. I'm hoping you've taken about an hour. I've given you a few powerful questions. Hopefully you've taken time, paused, got lots of information down on a piece of paper. You started to really feel what 2025 you want it to feel like. And then the first thing I want you to do is I want you to pick a word. I want you to pick a word for 2025. Now, my MG friends, I get that asking you to pick one word, that's a challenge in itself. So pick more. I am in this place at the moment where I think we're going with simple with the business. And I was going with receive, except I think I'm shifting into live life to the fullest. And again, this is very much in alignment with my profile, because I know when I vary in the adventure of the line 3, like everything is just exponentially growth and beautiful. So that's what I'd encourage you to do. Pick a word. Pick a word that's your North Star for 2025, because the power of our intention, the power of our words literally brings the universe into create. It sends out a message of who we want to be, who we want to become, what we want to experience. Now, don't overthink it. You can have 2 words if you want to. You have permission, but the whole point is to keep it simple. Like, what's that anchor? What's that anchor that's coming in? Your values can do this. Like, one of my highest values is peace. Peace, that's really one of my governing values. So I want you to pick a word for 2025. We've had in the past, easy was one of our words. We've had marvel. I had exponential growth one year. Was actually it was the year before my biggest growth year, like percentage wise, year on year. You can have all sorts of incredible words. Last year, my personal word was wonderland. So pick a word that you can have, a personal word and a business word, whatever you want. Just pick something and don't forget about it. Like, write it on your bathroom mirror, write it on a sticky note, stick it on your desk, whatever works for you. But just make sure you keep it top of mind. So when you go into the ego, when you go into fear, you can just, whoop, that's my focus for this year. Now, last but not least, one of the things I also do in my passion planner every single year at this time, or in January, when I feel like all my planning is complete, and again, that's something that I feel in my body. My sacral is like, I don't have any more energy for this. It feels complete. My emotional clarity is like, yep, we're done, move on. And this is the time that I sit down, meditate, come into heart coherence, do some Vedic meditation, and then I connect to my future self, that version of me that's actually sitting recording this podcast right now. I connected with her in January of this year, if you like, and just said, can you write me a letter? Give me an idea of what 2023 is going to be all about. 2024 in this case. Now I'm really confusing people. This letter is from your 2025 self. Okay. So this letter, you're calling in your future self, your 2025 version of you at Christmas, and just asking them just to channel what comes through. What messages do they have for you about the year to come? And then I encourage you just to, in my case, I just shut the book on it. I don't look at it all year. And then when I start this process again in 2025, when I go to review the year I've had, then I will read the letter. And look, every year I feel like it is so spot on, and I feel like there's a lot to be learnt. I feel like it's a great way to learn, to grow, to build trust, to experience the magic that lives within us, and how the quantum reality works. So that, my friend, is your short and sweet planning session for 2025. I trust you did the work, and if you didn't, if you're in the car, if you were walking the dog, make sure you make some time to come back, do it again, write it down, because the more clarity, the more we can write things down, the more depth, the more it really, what's the word I'm looking for? Grounds your intentions, grounds your manifestations, who you're becoming. I know that when you use pen to paper to heal, for example, I'm doing a lot of Hawaiian forgiveness at the moment. So I can do it just in my head, but I feel, for me personally, like I see big results when I do it. My method is writing it down, then crossing it out while saying the mantra. And I feel like the results are huge. Like, things really shift for me really quickly. So really take the time to do this work. Sit with it. If you're an emotional authority, come back to it a couple of times. If you're not and it feels like it's done, you go for it. Pick a word, get your future self to write you a letter, and get yourself all set up for 2025. Sound good? Brilliant. I trust that you got what you needed from today's episode, and I so look forward to having you on the next one. Bye for now. Thanks everyone for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.